Welcome to Health Matters. I'm your host, Justine Ginsberg, and today we're talking about back-to-school related challenges in relation to healthy snacks, lunches, and nutrition for our growing kids. In a recent CDC study, over 18% of children aged 2 to 19 years of age were obese in the United States. That's over 13.7 children and adolescents. There are many factors that contribute to obesity in our youth, and one of the major ones being dietary choices. There are many factors that contribute to obesity in our youth, as we said, one of them being dietary choices. All parents understand the dilemmas facing the return to school and the dreaded task of what to pack in the lunchbox that our children will eat. So here to talk about all things food related is our very good friend Alicia Newton, who's both a nutritionist, the executive director of Nourish My Soul, and my treasured sidekick in teaching the Year of Resiliency program for Resilience Grows Here. Welcome back, Alicia.
Thank you.
All right, so today we're going to be cooking something while we're chatting. What are we making?
So we are making cowboy caviar, which is, it's like a salsa that I like to use with anything that you have at the end of the garden season.
Okay.
So the real recipe has corn in it. We're going to substitute cucumber because we have an abundance of cucumbers in our garden.
Great.
So really you can make do with whatever you have.
All right, so as we're talking, we'll be slicing and dicing for our cowboy caviar. The recipe will be online at the end of the show, and of course we'll talk to you a little bit more about it as we progress. But first, kids are back to school.
Yes.
Breakfast.
Breakfast.
I can't get myself organised in the morning. How do we feed our darlings and set them off on a good start to the day?
Well, there's a couple of things, right? You need to prioritize it.
Okay.
So I can give you a little insight into my family. With 4 kids, we were really busy, and I know a lot of parents also have the after-school activity challenge too, right? So things are crazy, but having that one meal where we could all sit down together was super important to me. So I made that breakfast.
Okay.
And because that was my priority, I got up 15 minutes earlier to make breakfast is the easier meal to make.
Yes.
Right? Like cooking an egg takes a matter of minutes.
Sure.
If you have pre-made waffles, you can toast those up. Those are quick and easy. A lot of breakfast foods are really, really fast and simple. So that made sense to have us all around the table at that time.
Sure.
And it gave the kids time to talk about what they're worried about for that day, if they had a test coming up, or Susie's being mean to them,
So, I mean, you hit on a really key point there, pre-made.
Yes.
Because all mamas with children, 1 child, 2 children, or 10 children, getting out the door in the morning with everybody's sanity intact and all their after-school activities gear in the car, so you can get to work on time, can be a challenge.
Yes.
What is some of your go-to, other than like waffles, what are some of those pre-made, easy-to-do breakfasts?
A number 1 favorite in our junior chef program is mini frittatas. So you can freeze them, and they don't take any time. You basically make scrambled eggs and put in whatever additions you like into it. It could be onions, peppers. Some kids just like plain or cheese. That's a big favorite. Bake them in the oven for about 20 minutes, and then you can let them cool and pop them in the freezer. So then you just microwave it, and it's portable, right? So you can take this and you
when
eat
your
it on the
child
go.
is running late, they can eat it on the bus.
Yes.
So, circling back to breakfast, it is such, we say a lot, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, but when you think about academic success and the studies that talk to us about children that begin the day with a good, balanced breakfast, it really does set them up with the keys for learning, doesn't it?
Yes. You think about when you're hungry. How good is your attention span?
I think it's called hangry.
Yes. Kids don't function well when they don't have food in their stomach. Studies have proven that, schools know that. That's why on big test days, they offer breakfast if they don't have breakfast already in their school program. So really, we know it's vital in order for our kids to be awake, alert, and functioning, being able to retain information.
So as we're talking about the different meals of the day and being prepared, I want to kind of highlight that, back to school is September and we're heading into October, and guess what? Cold and flu season is just lurking around the corners. So, one of the hallmarks for a good immune system is also good nutrition.
Yes.
So, while we're talking, parents at home, just remember that every time you feed your children a good, healthy, balanced diet, you're actually helping to soak their immune system. So you're protecting them against all those dreaded things that float around at this time of year.
Yes.
Okay, so we fed our kids, we managed to get them onto the bus, and we're at work. It's lunchtime and they need to eat something.
Yeah.
The worst part of having 3 boys was trying to work out from year to year what on earth they would eat in those lunch pails and not bring home.
That's hard, especially when they're seeing their peers with foods that you wouldn't particularly want your child to eat,
Sure.
right? So that becomes a struggle. But really, it comes down to what your child likes, understanding what your child likes, what they're gonna find interesting in their lunchbox. A cookbook that really carried me through with my 4 kids was Beating Lunchbox Blues.
Ooh.
It's fantastic, has so many great fun ideas that are pretty simple to throw together. It can even be based on leftovers from the night before, just fun ways to put it together in a different way. That was a standby for me. And then also looking at how it's packaged, because we eat with our eyes first. So if it looks
appealing,
unappetizing, a child's not going to eat it. If it looks fun and appetizing, then they are. So some fun things that I've had kids use are, this is a Yum box. So you fill it. It has compartments because a lot of kids don't like the food to touch, right?
I have one of those. My oldest son, Alexander, shout out to you, my friend.
Yeah, don't touch. And this has a seal in it. So if you put
really
salad
doesn't
dressing
touch.
or dip or yep. And this comes out. So a trick is you can fill this the night before, have it in the fridge, pop it in here, and you're ready to go.
And do these come in different colors?
Yep, different colors and yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then there's smaller versions for younger kids. You know, you can do the tin ones.
Sure.
Obviously, you're noticing that these are all reusable. I'm really not a fan of accumulating garbage in the backpacks, so.
Well, absolutely not. And, you know, that's usually when something lurks at the bottom of the bag for the whole semester, only to be found when the moths have moved in.
Yes.
So, knowing that some children eat lunch at school.
Yes.
And even though there's a school lunch program, not every child uses that and they'll bring their lunch. How do we help our children to make good choices in a school lunch program? Recognizing, certainly as our kids get bigger, there's often vending machines in schools. How do we help them to make those good choices rather than the easy choices or the groovy fast food choices?
I think it really comes down to, instead of lecturing children, I'm a firm believer in empowering children. So giving them the information about the why. What is a healthy food? What does it do for your body? And why is that important? And looking at labels with them so they can understand and make the choices for themselves. So if you tell someone they can't do something, chances are they're going to do it when you're not looking, right?
How unlike a child.
So, and then they're going to keep secrets from you because they don't want to disappoint you or get you angry. So if you can open up that line of communication, talk about why they made the choice that they made, and then bring it full circle with maybe they get a stomachache later or they get a headache, and letting them know in a non-accusatory way that, wow, yeah, that had a lot of sugar in it. That gives me a headache too. That's probably why you feel lousy. So then they start to make that connection and they start making better choices.
You know, one of the things I love about the work that you do, so for the folks at home, Alicia has an amazing organisation called Nourish My Soul, where she works with kids across the developmental lifespan with different types of cooking programs, etc. And when I watch you work with particularly the very little people, you're so good at helping them to realise there's no bad food.
Right.
There's no food that is a terrible thing that you can never ever eat. But you help them to see what are good choices and to celebrate those good choices. So can you talk a little bit more about how we do that early so we have maybe less fussy eaters and kids that are more open to experimentation with food?
Well, a lot of fussy eating stems from asserting control, right? So especially you'll see toddlers start that behavior, and the more it becomes a battleground, the more they dig their heels in and the longer that behavior sticks around.
Sure.
So if you can let go of that battle and trust that your child won't starve to death.
Parents of more than one child work out very quickly that they won't starve to death.
Yes.
Usually first-time parents are genuinely concerned that they're just going to waste
Yes.
away, right?
Yeah, and then there's a couple things that you need to keep in mind on your behaviors as well. Not allowing them to dictate other meals. So, if you cook a meal and they're refusing to eat it, that's fine. But don't make them a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah.
Because that undermines any efforts that you're going to make to try and get them to try food.
And from your experience of working with kids, I mean, sometimes I hear when I'm working with families in schools, and when I was nursing, I'd often hear parents say, but my daughter won't eat anything but mac and cheese. Kids don't have that limited taste repertoire unless that's all we provide them.
Or unless they have, there are some situations where there's other issues going on that contribute to that. But the average child is not going to, they might limit for a while, and you'll see kids like that they rotate, right? Like mac and cheese is the meal of choice for 2 weeks, and then they never want to eat it again.
So thinking about, kids and, food experimentation, one of the things I love that you encourage with not just your children, but with your families, is having kids work in the kitchen with you.
Yes.
Being part of food choice and being part of food prep. Why is it important?
Well, the obvious reason is it's important as a life skill. They need to be able to, when they move out, you hope they move out someday, that they will be able to sustain themselves.
Sure.
And then in addition to that, I tell parents, in the beginning it's hard. It's hard to allow your child to make a mess in the kitchen and help out and to slow things down like that. But you will be so happy in the long run, because they will eventually, a child at 10 years old is capable of cooking your dinner.
Yeah.
And then you can just sit back and put your feet up and read a book.
I look at the work that we do with the Resilience Grows Here program and the Year of Resilience, and we often talk about organisation and being part of a team and part of a community. And as our kids get bigger, they genuinely want to help out.
Yes.
And if they feel like they have a role, mum's coming home late from work, I can get the salad started, or I can peel the potatoes. They've had that active role, and they know they're doing something to help the team.
Yes.
I think there's something magical about watching children take ownership like that.
Yeah. And then they're more likely to eat it, or at least try it.
Yes.
It's easy to say no to something that you had no part in creating, but if you've put in all of that time to create something, you're going to try it.
While we're talking about, putting in that effort to try something new because kids are involved, can we talk for a minute about some of the programming around gardening and why having your kids involved with growing food and knowing where food comes from as being so important?
Well, a lot of kids are so disconnected, right? They think that their food comes in packages in the grocery store, and that's where they originated, and it's magic. It comes from a factory. I think it loses its taste too, right? I tell kids all the time, I won't eat tomatoes from a grocery store.
Yeah.
I only eat them one season of the year. I do freeze them, but I'll only eat them fresh from the garden. To me, that's the only way they taste good. And the flavor is so much better. And kids who think they don't like something, when they try it fresh off the vine, they're most likely going to enjoy it. And you can do fun experimental things, like this is one.
Okay, so what's this?
These are cucamelons.
Ooh.
And they're perfect for a snack, because they're contained, bite size.
So a cucamelon, I'm assuming, is a cross between a melon and a cucumber.
It's like a mini cucumber, but it has like a lime flavor.
Oh, wow, they
but
almost look like
it looks like a mini watermelon.
Yeah.
It's
awesome.
great.
And you can throw those in salads or just have like snacks in your little benzo box.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. And because it's something different and unique, the kids love it. Whether or not they like cucumbers, they love those.
And there you go. There's one of those healthy vegetables that often we say our kids don't eat.
Yep.
So the other thing I want to ask you about is, so we've managed to survive lunchtime. Let's just touch on for a minute before we leave school, vending machines. Why are they or are they not a good idea, and is there ever a healthy choice in a vending machine?
I mean, there are some healthy vending machines now, but typically you're not going to see them in schools because they cost more money. and things go bad quicker in them. And unfortunately, we have this preconception that children won't eat healthy foods. And of course, they're not going to eat healthy foods if you're offering them vegetables next to a bag of Doritos or chocolate chip cookies. So you need to make sure that you're offering the healthy choices. So my philosophy is that schools model good behavior, right? We teach them math problems, we teach them English language and how things work, but then we don't undermine that by putting signs on the walls that are improper English.
Yes.
So in my opinion, I think we need to be modeling that in the schools, and if it's the only option there, kids are going to eat it.
And I think you were telling me a story about when your son was at school, that there was a cookie in the vending machine with
muffin.
A muffin with 3,000 calories in it.
Yes, isn't that absurd? I think it was something like 6 servings is how they got away with it. It's no longer there.
I can't imagine it would have fitted through the little chute at the bottom of the vending machine. It's more like a cake.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. More calories than I'm supposed to have in an entire day.
Oh my goodness.
In this one muffin. And then we wonder why our kids are struggling with weight problems.
Absolutely, because we're not offering them the healthy choices.
Right.
So now we've managed to get our kids out of lunch. They're on the bus, they're on their way home, and I don't know many young children, and I certainly don't know any teenagers that don't come home ravenously hungry, looking to eat anything they can get their hands on. Now, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to work out that the easy option is probably going to be the option they're going to go for because they're hungry.
Yeah.
So how do we help them make better choices when they get off that bus and they're starving?
Well, some families actually, as a matter of fact, instead of having a snack, they do dinner then because of all the after-school activities. They'll have an early dinner and a snack later, and that cuts that feeling of being ravenous, so the snack can be more controlled. That's one option. Or having snacks like fruits and vegetables that are pre-cut. That's the key. Because if a child has to cut it up, or if anyone has to cut it up when they're that hungry, it's overwhelming, it's unappetizing. You just want to open a bag of chips and wolf them down as fast as you can.
Absolutely. And particularly because time is often, as you said, you come home from school and often there's that quick transition between getting home, throwing off your school clothes, jumping into a sports uniform or off into ballet gear or, some after school club, and then you're back out the door. Not often getting home until 7 or 8 at night, in which case sometimes you've even gone past being hungry, and then you start skipping meals.
Yep.
And you go for the easy option of a bowl of ice cream or something like that because now they've got to do homework.
Yep.
So, using that theme of looking at our bodies are like machines, they need to continue to be fueled. So we've fed them well in the morning, but we have to keep topping that up. They're going to run out of gas.
Yes.
And again, with the winter seasons coming and the back to school and kids being exposed to some of those, communicable diseases like, colds and flus and stomach bugs, they're much more vulnerable if they're not eating well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And if you get to that point of hunger, you don't care what you're eating. There's no rationalizing at that point, so you can't make any good decisions.
So we have, believe it or not, 5 minutes to spare.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, doesn't that go fast? So we're going to quickly talk about dinner because I know when my boys were younger and I was working full time and they were in clubs, etc. Some nights I would get home and think, I just need to dial for pizza. I just don't have the gas in my tank to make a meal. How can we help to have things easy and ready to go so there's always a healthy option?
So doing things like what we're doing right now, having a day that you go to the grocery store and then you prep everything. So this is a great snack, this cowboy caviar, and you just have it sitting in here. The lime juice keeps it so it stays fairly fresh, so you don't have to worry about the avocados turning brown. And then instead of potato chips, using this is a great chip alternative using celery because it has a salty natural flavor and that crispy crunch. So a lot of times we gravitate towards the chips because it's stress relieving to have that crunch, right? You just want to bite into something and have it just go crunch. So that's an option. And then also doing meal prep, a couple times a week. I used to do it When we had all the kids at home, we would do it once on the weekend. I would cook a big meal. And if you're already cooking, it doesn't take anything extra to make it doubled, tripled, whatever. And then you can use that. If you're making a chicken, you can use that chicken in chicken fajitas, or, getting creative.
Yeah, and I think when, particularly, again, the kids are going back to school, the cooler weather's starting, it's soup weather, it's stew weather.
Yes.
You're going to make a big pot of bolognese sauce in the slow cooker, make a big one and freeze 3 or 4 portions.
Yes.
Then you just have to throw some pasta in, or, some vegetables to toss with whatever it is that you've got going on. Before we run out of time, I do want you to have a chance to talk a little bit about some of the programming that you have with kids, because it's so valuable.
So Nourish My Soul has tiered programs that the kids move through, and that's very purposeful in that way. So our youngest kids do Growing Healthy Kids when they're old enough to come to a program without their parents. We do gardening programs with parents, but at 5 years old, they can come to Growing Healthy Kids, and we teach them how to grow, where food comes from, how to prepare it. We have fun games. It's all very active, hands-on learning. Then they go into Junior Chef in middle school, and that's purposeful because middle school kids are starting to really want to assert their independence, and that's when kids start to make bad decisions. And this can empower them to make good decisions, connect them back to community, because we do community outreach projects with them. And then our high school kids, that's a high school leadership from the ground up. They put in massive amounts of time. It's a 1-year service commitment, and they do things to change the current food system. So whatever deficits they find, they use their voice to determine what the changes should be.
And I was lucky enough to be at the graduation of your recent group of graduates, and seeing these amazing young men and women who were going on to college, and almost all of them had chosen something to do with the food system, or food justice, or farming, or equity, because of the program that you offered. And these amazing young individuals are such a credit to you and to your program, because many of them had grown up through the program, had been with you 3 or 4 years. And to see these young, extraordinary human beings with these voices that were loud and clear and determined is a true credit to you and to what you're trying to promote.
Thank you. I mean, I just get to sit back and watch. I guide, I mentor, but they do all of the work and put in a lot of time and effort. It's wonderful.
Well, I think that's part of the key to what you do so well, is that you really do empower this generation. So any final thoughts? Because we've got about a minute before we have to wrap up, and that cowboy caviar is looking mighty fine.
I would encourage parents to pay attention to the textures and flavors that their child likes, because that's another mantra that I use. Anyone who's been in my programs will hear me say, it's not the food you don't like, it's the way it's prepared.
Yeah.
So, looking at, if your child likes soft textures, crunchy textures, and if you're having trouble with them, getting them to eat things, zeroing in on that and using that as a tool.
All right, so parents at home, you got to start mixing it up, experimenting with those flavors and textures, and really thinking about, providing options for your kids in what you're presenting with them. So again, Alicia, thank you for joining us. Understanding what to eat and how to offer it to your child is such an important step in providing good nutritional foundations for the rest of their lives. Regular, healthy meals allows kids to perform better both physically and mentally. Today we learned about the importance of meal preparation and planning. We all get busy, but knowing how to make a quick and healthy meal and snacks at home can assist us in avoiding unwanted fats, salts and sugars. Having children involved with meal preparation and selection not only creates an environment where food is fun, but it also teaches them valuable lessons in nutrition that will last their whole lives. Consider enrolling your child in a group that teaches cooking, food growing, and developing an understanding of food systems in their community. Raising kids to be involved in their own good health is key to creating adults who make good, healthy choices. To find out more about today's episode and the work that Nourish My Soul does, please log on to their website or log on to fvhd.org to find out more about us, or you can find both Nourish My Soul and Farmington Valley Health District on Facebook. As always, until next time, your greatest wealth is your health.